Good morning, Oslo. Good morning, Oslo Business Forum. My name is Anssi Rantanen. I'm from Finland, as you might have noticed from the intro song. And I love Norway, I love Oslo, I love Norwegians. So I'm really, really grateful and happy to be here this morning. So for the past 8 years, I've been working with over 100 different companies, helping them grow. And the themes and the topics that I specialize in are, for example, rapid experimentation, customer centricity, data-driven decision-making, and also how to harness new technologies in order to systematize and unlock avenues of growth. And today, I'm here to talk about AI, maybe more specifically, generative AI, and how you and your organization can find levers for growth in there. But a quick word of housekeeping. There's a ton of stuff that we could dive into today for hours, and we don't have that time. So I've compiled a document which has my favorite articles, podcasts, videos on AI and generative AI, and you'll be receiving that after my talk. But we as humans, we've been envisioning computer knowledge and computer wisdom for quite some time. One of my favorite stories comes from the late 1800s, when a magician created a magic trick called the Mechanical Turk, which was a machine, an automaton, that could beat anybody at chess. And nobody had any idea how it worked. Until one day, the magician was performing it in a theater. There was a theater fire, and the audience saw a little man crawl from underneath the table and run away. So the secret was that there was a small professional chess player inside the table, and that was the sort of secret to the trick. But this was one of the first sort of visions of artificial intelligence. And of course, 100 years later, IBM's Big Blue actually created something like this. But you know, the history is quite long. And speaking of magic, I actually do have something magical here on stage as well, but we're going to get to that a bit later. Now, computers actually quite recently were incredibly dumb. Just a few years ago, this was one of the hardest problems for computers to solve. Is it a chihuahua, or is it a muffin? This was equally baffling. Is it a Shar-Pei dog, or is it a towel? One of the hardest problems for a computer to solve. But with the recent intelligence explosion, problems like these have, of course, become incredibly simple for computers to solve. And on a high level, there's really three things that have been driving the progress. Number one is that chip manufacturers are creating more specialized chips for AI training. For example, NVIDIA's H100 is what's powering a lot of this revolution. And the second thing is that the quantity and quality of data has exploded. So all data in human history, 90% of it was created in the last 2 years. And these algorithms need a ton of data to be trained, so it wouldn't have been possible to train them like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And the third is that we're making a lot of software improvements as well, algorithmic improvements. And there's two sort of algorithms that are especially important and relevant for you to know and understand. And those are large language models, or LLMs, and diffusion models. And because these will play a significant role, in the upcoming years, I'm going to do a bit of an introduction about what they are. So large language models, or LLMs, they're basically tools that power, for example, ChatGPT. And how they work is that they're given a ridiculous amount of text data, and the machine basically just learns to predict the next word or the next token. So they're basically very, very sophisticated autocomplete algorithms. But there's a lot of interesting implications that come out of it. If we just hop over to my computer, for example, I can tell ChatGPT, could you please code me a game of Snake in HTML? Please make it one file. And I've never written a single line of code in my life. I'm not a coder. I don't understand anything of what's happening on screen right now, but with the help of tools like generative AI, I can basically code. And large language models have a lot of other very interesting emergent applications and emergent features. For example, they're incredibly good at sentiment analysis. They're incredibly good at summarization. They're incredibly good at translation. And these are surprising things that we didn't necessarily expect them to be able to do, but they're truly general purpose transformers. That's what GPT means. It's a very general purpose tool. And one other thing that I would mention before we run this code, I don't know about you, but I'm always very polite towards these machines because I'm sort of hedging my bets. If they become our computer overlords one day, they might remember that I've always been polite to them. So it might be, worth considering, but I'll leave that up to you. So ChatGPT has now made the code. I'm just going to copy and paste it into a file. I'm going to save snake.html. And now you will see that I've basically coded a game of Snake, and that took me roughly a minute to do. So could we just marvel for a second at how magical that is, right? That's pretty insane. Now, if we go back to the presentation, those are large language models, and the next set of algorithms are what are called diffusion models. And diffusion models are, I've actually tried for 2 weeks to come up with a simple metaphor on how to explain diffusion models, but I haven't been able to do so. All you need to know is that they're software algorithms that can create images, they can create video, they can create audio files out of nothing. And Midjourney is probably the most popular tool, and I think this is an interesting graph because this represents how rapid this progress is now. From a year and a half ago, Midjourney was pretty bad, and now it's incredibly photorealistic. And Amy showed a couple of interesting examples, and I like to play around with Midjourney as well. So similarly to Amy, I asked it to give an image, not of the CEO of a tampon company, but actually of a ladies' underwear company. And again, if we just look at what it generates, you'll probably notice that there's a bit of a theme. For some reason, CEOs of these companies tend to be very handsome, so that's probably the key takeaway, right? But again, back to the presentation, I think Amy highlighted it pretty well, and these examples really show that there are problems with these algorithms. There are potential biases baked in, as I just mentioned. They have a tendency to hallucinate, which means that they can be incredibly confident in giving you an answer which is factually not correct. Another big problem is that they're actually very expensive to run. And in our day and age of sustainability, this can be a pretty big issue because they require a ton of energy to be run and to be trained. And also, there's some obvious data security issues. You might have heard this spring, a couple of Samsung employees uploaded some secret proprietary strategy documents to ChatGPT to be summarized, and those documents are now on OpenAI servers. OpenAI is a competitor to Samsung, so they just basically handed over, the documents to their competitor. So fortunately, OpenAI has come out with an enterprise version, but still, there's a lot of considerations to take into account. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be playing around and experimenting with these tools, because they're incredibly powerful and quite magical. For example, I'm just going to show another case here. A company called MySpeaker is one of the leading speaker agencies in Europe, and they have over 1,500 speakers that they represent. And this is a bit of a challenge for the salespeople, because the salespeople can't know exactly off by heart what every speaker talks about. And McKinsey did a study, and they found that white-collar workers spend 20% of their time looking for information. So what my speaker did is that they developed a basically co-pilot for the salespeople, and they can ask something like this. I need a speaker for my client's kickoff. They need an inspirational speaker who's knowledgeable about AI and leadership in AI. Can you give me 5 recommendations? And the chatbot goes ahead and knows everything of the 1,500 speakers, everything that's been produced from a text perspective, and can give recommendations. And then, of course, the salespeople can dig deeper into the profiles of the speakers, et cetera. And we're estimating that this is saving 30 to 45 minutes of salespeople's time every single day. And if we count that to an annual impact, we made a back-of-the-envelope calculation that it's saving them bottom line, over 100K, for which their size company is pretty good. If we go back to the slides, there are other interesting case studies. Boston Consulting Group gave a subset of their consultants GPT-4 to work with, and another subset didn't get it. And they published a paper where they found that the consultants using GPT-4, they were able to finish 12% more projects during the same time. They were 25% faster at completing tasks. And interestingly, the quality of their output increased by 40%. So they're able to do more, and they're able to do better quality work. Now, imagine if we're just able to translate a fourth of that, or 10% of that, into the top line. It can have pretty significant impact. Another case study, a company called JetBlue, an airline in North America, they developed a generative AI-powered chatbot that can answer 60,000 questions. And they made an estimate that this is saving 73,000 hours of customer service rep time every single quarter. Now let's just make a simple calculation. Let's say that a rep is 30 euros an hour. This means that they're getting a bottom line improvement of 2.2 million per quarter, right? And also the reps are freed to spend more time with the more challenging customers or the more important customers, so it's a win-win. And GitHub Copilot, which is a generative AI tool for software developers, specialized for software development. ChatGPT isn't specialized for software development. But they made a study, and they found that developers that get to use GitHub Copilot, their productivity increases by 126%. So they're roughly 2xing their output, right? Now imagine that you have 20 software developers in your company. You want to go to 30. Well, skip hiring, just give them GitHub Copilot if we assume a 50% productivity increase. That'll give you a 1 million euro saving annually, right? Or if you're selling developers and selling coders, if we can translate some of that into top-line impact, again, it can have pretty significant business impact. And there's currently over 1,000 new AI startups that are being launched every single month. So it doesn't matter what function you're in, it doesn't matter what vertical you're in, very soon, if not already, there will be a bunch of tools that can help you increase your teams and your company's productivity. And this, I think, has quite interesting implications. And one of the maybe most important implications, in my point of view, is that mediocrity, as we know it, is pretty much dead. And what I mean by that is that anybody can create a mediocre brand or a mediocre website in minutes or hours using these tools. Soon, with Microsoft Copilot, anybody in your company can create a mediocre sales presentation for a potential customer in the matter of seconds. I was able to create a very mediocre game of Snake in 60 seconds, right? And mediocrity, is pretty much dead, and I think it has, again, interesting implications for your company. So the way that I would summarize it is that generative AI is incredibly good at creating 60% versions of pretty much anything in seconds or minutes. And there's huge efficiency gains to be derived from that, both top line and bottom line. And therefore, you should be experimenting with these tools if you're not already. But we can't forget the last 40%. The last 40% is the human touch, right? We as humans, we crave magical experiences. We crave excellent, customer interactions. We crave, and the best companies, I think, create raving fans. And generative AI can't do this yet, right? But I wanted to do one final sort of demo to show you what this sort of 60% looks like. And I'm a big fan of magic, and I'm a hobbyist magician. But I want to make it very clear, I am not a professional. I did my first magic trick roughly 5 months ago, so I'm not a professional at all. But for today, I co-created a magic trick with ChatGPT, and I'm going to unveil it to you now in a second to show you what a 60% magic trick looks like. So, I created an offline version of Midjourney. It's like an automaton. It doesn't have electricity. It doesn't have internet. But I'm not calling it Midjourney. I'm calling it Big Journey, because I don't want to take you on a medium-sized journey. I want to take you on a big journey. And I'm going to need the participation. Basically, what this can do is generate and print images of what we ask it to print. And I'm going to need the help of someone in the audience to generate a random number for me. So on my phone, I have a list of 100 random animals. And I'm going to ask someone here front to just give me a random number between 1 and 100. So you, sir, what is your name? Anders. Nice to meet you, Anders. Anders, have we ever met before? No. Have we ever spoken before? Great. Could you, Anders, say out loud a random number between 1 and 99? 64. 64. Do you want to change your number? No. No. You're happy with 64? OK. So, Anders, on my phone, if you look at my phone, if you just open that random animals, yeah, and if you scroll and check that they're all different. So if you go to 60, what was your number again? 60? 64. 64, OK. Go to 64 and look at what animal is there, but don't say it out loud. OK? You remember? Great. Good job, Anders. So you have an animal in mind. Fantastic. So Big Journey is a special tool. It can create an image of that animal when we give it the prompt. So Anders, now, for the first time, could you tell us what animal you randomly generated? A lion. OK. Big Journey. We need the image of a lion. Ladies and gentlemen, Big Journey's depiction of a lion. OK. Oh, up. It's not very good. But worry not, this is version 1. So if we put it back in the box, let Big Journey do a software update. Now it's done the software update, and we can look inside. We can see now not bad, not bad, not bad. So I asked ChatGPT, how could we do such a trick if we just go to my computer screen? And it gave me 3 great options on how to do a trick like this. Number 1 is that it proposed that we could have some electronics in the box, maybe a printer or something. Number 2 is that we could have multiple outs, so there could be 100 different pieces of paper inside the box. And number 3, it proposed that we could have a hidden assistant. So let's see what I decided to do, OK? So the number 1 thing that it was proposing was a printer. But as we can see, there's definitely no printer inside, but there are maybe a couple of papers. So, multiple outs could be a good idea that it proposed. But Midjourney creates 4 different versions of different images. It's actually a feature of Big Journey that it creates 100 copies of the same thing. So here, actually, we have 100 images of a lion. It's a feature, not a bug. And if someone wants to come and check these out, you're more than happy to do so. So that leaves us with only one last way on how to do it, which is that I could have a hidden assistant or a hidden something inside the table that could have had the different options, and then maybe there's a hole in the table or something. So let's see if that one is the way that me and ChatGPT decided to do this trick. Ready? Big Journey is great. So I have a confession to make. I did not co-create that trick with ChatGPT. I actually co-created it with the gentleman who was inside the table. His name is Markus Tervo, and he's one of the best magicians in the Nordics. Because for today, I could have created something mediocre, and actually any of you could become a mediocre magician using ChatGPT, but I wanted to do something a bit special. I wanted to do something exceptional, and therefore I sought out, the best magician that I could find. And I think this is a really good metaphor for where we are with generative AI. Generative AI can help you create a mediocre anything in seconds. And don't get me wrong, there's huge efficiency gains, both top line and bottom line, to be derived from that. And therefore, you definitely should be playing around with these tools. But I think the last 40%, we can't forget that. That's the human touch. That's human ingenuity. That's human creativity. That's human empathy, right? I think it would be a mistake just to focus on the efficiency gains and just forget that why are we doing what we do? Hopefully, it's to create happy customers, it's to create value for customers, and create great customer experiences. So ChatGPT, generative AI, Midjourney, all of these tools, they're not going to help your salespeople become excellent salespeople. They're not going to help your marketeers become world-class marketeers. They're not going to help your leaders become fantastic leaders. Yes, there's a lot of efficiency to be gained from the 60%, but let's not forget the 40%. Because mediocrity is pretty much going to be a commodity. Everybody's going to have access to these tools. So here's my ask for all of us. Let's not be content with mediocrity. Let's strive to be exceptional. Because I think when you combine the two, that's really, really where the magic happens. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And could we also just give a big round of applause to Markus Tervo, one of the best magicians in the Nordics.
Big Journey, amazing. I need to get that tool at home.
Yeah, patent pending. Patent pending.
It's patent pending, I could imagine. You touched upon, Anssi, in your keynote speak about also the privacy concern and ownership of information. As a lot of you are probably aware, the Hollywood writers, the Hollywood industry have been on strike for like 5 months.
Yeah.
It's just been settled today, it's just in the news. But out of this concern of we could be replaced, but also movie actors like Tom Cruise being scared of, can we actually be replaced? Do they own us as soon as they have our voices, our images? And you used the example of Samsung.
Yeah.
So this is this mix about, it's an opportunity, it's also a challenge and a threat. What would be your number one advice for the people here who feel still insecure about this, if you actually want to take a leap into starting off with AI?
Yeah, I think experimentation. So I'm going to be listing a sort of bunch of interesting tools in the document that you're going to receive. I recommend playing around with them, right? Don't upload proprietary company strategy information to those tools. Hopefully that goes without saying. But I think like there's a lot of quite safe ways to play around with them on your own. And again, they are quite magical. But I do think, of course, from a company perspective, like I would, depending on your company size, I would find, the 3 to 6 sort of smartest, men or women that are interested and excited about this technology. Give them, 20% or 40% of their time to think about this, to think how you could be adopting it, how you could be using it. Because, for example, OP, a bank in Finland, they created a real estate listing sort of text generator, because they generate 25,000 real estate listings every single year, and it's saving the real estate agents time by 75% when they're creating these listings. So there's like huge gains to be gotten out. So if you're a company, just choose 3 to 7 people and give them some time to think about this and experiment. And of course, they'll also have to think about the privacy aspect and the sort of data aspect, etc.
But start experimenting rather today than later on.
That would be my definite recommendation, yes.
It was so interesting. Thank you so much, Anssi. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.